Welcome to the Cleveland County Historical Society. My name's Paul Enos, and I'll give you all a little tour, quick history of this place. This building was completed in, this is the post office, first of all. It was completed in 1939, and one thing I like to tell everybody right in the beginning and show them is a lot of these post offices had catwalks, and we only have two of those. The postal inspector would come in and he would view you through those viewers up there. And of course nowadays they have cameras. So that's an interesting fact.
Really cool.
So anyway, this is just, which I like to start people out here and show them. Now I'm going to be moving, so how's this going to work out for you? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Like, I'll just start you out here and start showing you a few of the things that we keep everything Cleveland County related. And by the way, I've been doing this about 3 years here.
Are you from Cleveland County?
No. That's interesting how I got here. We'll talk about that at some point, maybe or maybe not. But I'd like to show everybody this. This was up in Quitman, Arkansas. It was in a store from 1878 to 1905. And this apparatus or tool, whatever you want to call it, was made for one thing and one thing only, and that was tobacco. And if you couldn't afford a whole chaw, there's measurements on the back, and they would lop you off as much as you could afford.
That's cool.
Okay, and I'll just show you a couple quick things. That's a twisted tobacco. And tobacco was king at one time, and this tool was made for nothing but opening tobacco boxes. So, okay. Then over here, just a couple of, here's a steel. I have to show you this old steel. And this is a copper steel, and that was a real homemade one there. Here's another steel that was actually taken by the Sheriff's Department in 1988.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, that's a pretty neat oak steel. Now this is a grist mill, and there's only a couple of things missing. It had a couple of screens, and the reason it had screens is because the stones inside aren't adjustable. So you couldn't get like grits or corn flour, so this was attached to maybe sometimes a water power or a tractor, and the two, they would be shaken like that when it was spinning, and so you might get corn grits or corn flour.
Do you know anything about the history of the town itself?
I do. Cleveland, I know I can start out with Cleveland County. It was the last county created in Arkansas, out of White, Van Buren, and Independence County. Heber Springs was essentially called Sugarloaf or Sugarloaf Springs. And over here, the reason that we're even beginning to be on the map, they had started this spring park. I don't know if you've been over there or not, but there's like 6 medicinal springs, and they each had different things they would do. One was for your eyes, etc., you know. And so, long story short, is the guy that had started developing this as a health resort. Wasn't enough water to bathe in, but you could drink it. He sold it to this gentleman in the 1880s. And this gentleman's son was a physician in Memphis, Tennessee. Guess what this, it was called Sugarloaf, and the son's name, take a guess what his name was? Heber. And you can know, so that's when it became Heber Springs, and I'm sure he endorsed that these springs were medicinal.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. Are there any other, besides the park, are there any other like springs around town? Are there bathhouses, anything like that?
Nope. No, I'm sure there's other springs, but none that were ever developed or worked into anything. There's some other sites, like, of course, everybody goes and looks at Sugarloaf Mountain now. And then there's Bridalveil Falls. There's a mini train museum, too.
I saw that when I was
Okay.
in the museums, yeah.
But, and of course, Cleveland County was the last county created in Arkansas in 1883. It's named after General Patrick Cleveland, who died in Franklin, Tennessee in a Civil War battle. He was actually from Helena and born in Ireland. So, now, if you want to move along, I'm just hitting the high.
Take it off. You carry it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just hitting the high spots for y'all.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
And you got your viewer in there, didn't you?
Yep.
And okay.
I've never seen those.
I know, that's so cool.
And you can leave this
Well, I've never noticed.
wherever you want. Now here's what I show everybody. Now here's the courthouse that you came by earlier. Okay, when they built this courthouse, they took the old one and set it back there. It burned a few years later. What I like to show everybody about this photo, see the fence around the courthouse?
Yeah.
This fence around the courthouse? Well, in 1922, they had free-range cattle and hogs, and you could run around, and so they didn't want the animals on the courthouse lawn. But that changed, they called it the stock law in 1922.
Okay.
So you could be just strolling by, and it was like the country of India around here. Come in here, I'll show you the damn Disfarmer room. The reason I call it the damn Disfarmer room is because we have a wall about the history of the dam and the building of the dam. But now this is a fairly rare picture, I think. I could be wrong. The day John F. Kennedy came on the north side of the dam, where the John F. Kennedy overlook is, they had a skywalk across there that day. And of course, this is all grown up now.
That's pretty cool.
And of course, you know, we just have little things like this. Like, for instance, this is a replica scale of the hopper they used to get the concrete. They had, on each side, they would take it and fill it up with concrete and take this where they wanted to dump it in the dam. And it would hold 16 tons of concrete.
That's crazy. That is like a super detailed little model there.
Yeah, oh, it works. I mean, it goes up and down, side to side. Okay, now here's what you got to know. This is all important. This guy, this Mike Disfarmer, was a portrait photographer here for 50 years. His photos, pictures, whatever you want to call them, are now in every major art museum of the world and the Smithsonian. So this is very interesting. This studio right here in this photo was across the street, right there in that parking lot. And it was pulled out, that picture was pulled out of this picture in 1937. There's the Disfarmer studio, and you notice it was taken from the basement where they had just broke the ground on this building. Because this building was completed in 39, but that was taken in 37. Long story short, the man was found dead in that building in 1950. He didn't have any notoriety, just a guy that took portrait photos. And he was found dead in his building in 1959. And a few years later, the story gets garbled here, but long story short, if the dam hadn't have been built, this guy never would have been discovered, because the guy that discovered him was up here with an entity called the Group. They had a dinner theater at the Narrows on Greers Ferry Lake. But anyway, they moved to Heber. And a few years later, the guy that had bought the building said, "I'm raising the building. Anybody want to buy the contents?" And it was unusual that this guy still used glass plate negatives. Everybody in the 20s went to celluloid. And so this gentleman, he bought them. He sent samples to New York and Chicago. And they sent back and said this guy had been a genius photographer, and that they wanted anything and everything that could be had on him. They sent people down there. Photos went for thousands of dollars. They were canvassing the county. Wow. Even some up for $10,000. So, and one thing that makes it so unique is, aside from the glass plate negatives, that all his subjects were Cleveland County for 50 years. And that's unusual. You have it all in one spot in such a narrow, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and right now it's kind of mired in a lot of controversy. And we'll leave it alone. It's in court and people are suing and whatever. But the point is, if the dam hadn't have been built, that guy wouldn't have been here for a whole other business, and he had the presence of mind to know there was something about it, because they were getting ready to bulldoze the stuff under.
How long had he been deceased? Do you have any idea?
In 59, they found him dead in that building, and when this other guy, I'm not going to say his name, you'll know his name, and everyone else does know his name, but anyway, this was in the early 70s when he purchased those glass plate negatives. So there's so many different stories. I really don't know what to say anymore. I used to have my standard story in the beginning that I said and what I was taught, but now I've researched it so much, and then there's more stuff. Like on my phone, there's just there's an article on the Heber, and there's an article on that just came out.
Hey Sherry, this looks just like our
It
phone.
does.
Exactly.
We have this phone.
I mean, that's the exact model and
That is our
everything.
exact phone we
Well,
have.
and you use it?
No.
No.
Listen, here's something you gotta see, and this has nothing to do with Cleveland County. Y'all aren't old enough to remember this, when telephone
Oh no, I
lines
remember.
actually ran on telephone poles.
Yeah, I remember
You'd
that.
call to get a phone hooked up, and the guy'd crawl up the
Yep.
pole, he'd hook this up, dial it, and call you. That is so cool, isn't it?
We must look a lot younger than we actually
Yeah.
are.
You must.
Yeah, I'm
you-
50.
I'm
She's
49.
just right behind me.
Okay, yeah, you're
I
doing good
remember.
then. You're doing well. And then when you came into town, you came to that three-way stop sign. Remember that Budget Inn that was
Yes.
there? This was called the Barnett Motel, and they used this switchboard in the Barnett
Wow.
Motel till 1978. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we have this desk in here. It's our second oldest piece, so it's pretty old. But the reason we have this desk in here is because in 1898 it handed down the sentence condemning Lee Mills to be hanged, and they hanged him up by the Sonic. Okay, now this is really going to interest y'all. This county has a great musical heritage, y'all.
Wait, hang on.
What is that?
Yeah, what's the story with that picture?
Okay, I tell you what. If people are watching, you're watching this, ask them. No, we can't.
Okay.
And there's so much symbolism in the whole
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
And here,
Where did it come from?
from it got to here, but I think it's been around a couple places in the bowels of the courthouse.
Yeah, I did.
I'm just hitting the high spots for y'all.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Now, like I said, this is a post office, and this.
Yeah, we do have the same radio. We
Okay.
have a lot of stuff.
We collect weird stuff. So.
Well, that's okay. Now, here's what I want to tell you about the great musical heritage here. Luther G. Presley, who wrote "When the Saints Go Marching In" is from here.
Wow.
This guy, when I was a kid, Teddy Rydell, I listened to popular radio. He was on the radio. He's from here.
I know Rolling My Sweet Babies Up.
Yeah, he's from here. The guy that wrote the most covered song ever, and this song, there's only one other song that got any more airplay than this. It was called "Singing the Blues." He's from Greer's Ferry, Melvin Inslee. Now this is from around 1910. The crank broke, so I am now the crank, and I've got it down to a science. And so this is pretty neat, this whole deal. This album was from 1908. Oh, crap. It was one of the first musical stars. Isn't that crazy? And then what's cool is the way they did the volume. Kind of like that. They would just close the door.
Hello, everybody. Now just listen to this.
I'm beginning to like this. I've played it so much.
My sweetheart likes his lover, and far across the phone. I feel so all alone.
And it only gets better from here.
Yeah.
Now here you go. Now this is from the same era.
Now I love how, look, you push the buttons and the records come out? Or
Yeah, they
now-
did it one
See,
time.
but that's pretty cool. We don't have that.
No, they have.
We have a gramophone, but ours doesn't have those fancy features.
And that was fancy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a bellows organ. Can you play?
I cannot.
I can't either, but we'll see what's going on. Okay, so you got to get it pumping.
That's amazing.
I got along with those now.
Yeah, really.
Now this is the oldest piece we have in here. This was in the Quitman Post Office in 1853. And of course Quitman wasn't even in this county in 1853. It was in Van Buren County. It didn't until this was created a county. Then anyway, that's our oldest piece. 1940s toaster. You didn't walk away from that baby.
Oh no.
And this thing works like a charm. When they donated it, I got to looking at that cord and I said, well, I plugged it in, instantly it worked.
That's really cool.
Last thing I'll show you, maybe, this quilt right here. Remember the Bull Durham roll your own pull
Yeah.
string?
Yeah.
This whole quilt is made out of those little Bull Durham
Wow.
tobacco sacks.
Wow.
That's impressive.
It's a lot of smoking.
Yeah, they had them a party, man.